Welcome to the Susquehanna JT Exchange podcast, where we talk about all that is Susquehanna track and field. And today we have a special episode. We are going to meet the coach. Today we have Coach Ryan Weir with us. He is our associate head coach for sprints and hurdles. The purpose of the segment, Meet the Coach, is to kind of get to know our coaches, understand why they got into coaching, where they came from, whether you're a recruit, an alumni, current student athlete, parent, anyone that really just wants to get to know the program. You're going to get to know us on a deeper level and figure out why we do what we do. So, Coach Weir, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you with me. So let's get started. Why don't you start by telling me a little bit about yourself?
Well, yep, like you said, my name's Ryan Weir. I am from Lodi, Ohio. I went to school in Baldwin-Wallace, just south of Cleveland. Got my degree in exercise science with a minor in athletic coaching. I've been coaching this will be my 11th year. I started coaching at Cloverleaf, coached there for 2 years before I started here, and then been here ever since.
Great. So you mentioned you're from Ohio, Baldwin-Wallace.
Yep.
Got into coaching. You said you've been coaching for 11 years?
Yep.
And how long of that is here at Susquehanna?
This will be my 9th year.
9th year. That's great. So why don't you tell me something that maybe I don't know or the team doesn't know about you?
Big metalhead.
Okay.
Yeah. Big nerd as well.
A metalhead and a nerd.
Yeah.
Huh? Your head looks very normal to me. It doesn't look like it's made out of metal. What's your favorite band?
Disturbed.
Disturbd. Do they do Down with the Sickness? Is that them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that song. My son, he likes the where they go, wah.
I can see Lil Hey Ray doing that.
All right, great. If you weren't coaching, what do you think you'd be doing?
So when I was in high school, before I decided I wanted to start coaching, carpentry was what I wanted to do.
Carpentry, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are we talking? We talking like cabinets, home remodels, Santa's toy shop?
A little bit of everything. I like the Santa's toy shop. Bring a little joy. But growing up, I wanted to build my own house and kind of, do everything inside of it. So it's a little bit of everything.
That's awesome. Jack of all trades. Great. Yep. So you mentioned that you went to Baldwin-Wallace in Ohio. Mm-hmm. Very strong Division III track and field program there. Yep. Were you an athlete?
I was. Yep. So I ran track for 6 years in high school, and then at some point I decided I wanted to go to college. I spent a lot of time in our athletic training room when I was in high school, kind of really fell in love with that. Originally decided I wanted to go continue to compete in college, and I wanted to go be an athletic trainer and get my degree in exercise science. Plan was always to, be an athletic trainer and coach at the high school that I had worked at. But then at some point, I kind of made the switch that, I really wanted to focus on coaching and the athletic side of it. And athletic training kind of got in the way of those two things. I was competed for 4 years there.
Okay. Is there any meet or even practice or event that sticks out in your mind?
Probably senior year, outdoor conferences, last competition, last 4 in hurdle race, last 4x4. Those are the kind of memorable ones, bittersweet, last competition, trying to make sure the last one's a good one.
What is the most valuable lesson that you learned from being a collegiate student athlete?
That you have to be a little crazy. With balance and everything from a academic standpoint, as well as, being in an event like the 4 hurdles, you have to be a little crazy. With the things that you have to do, and the aggression that you have to bring to the events and everything, you got to be a little out there.
Yeah, it's kind of like the pole vaulters.
Yes, exactly.
Name an influential coach you've had throughout your career.
I think that one's a tough question for a lot of coaches because, if you ask a lot of coaches, they're going to have, a list of individuals that were influential to them throughout the course of their career. I would say probably my biggest one was kind of the first one, Coach Frank Peters. He was my coach in high school. He was the one that, when I was in middle school, I could barely run 100. I didn't know I was supposed to be breathing, all those kind of things. But freshman year, he looked at me and he said, hey, you've got a good build for a 400 runner. And I said, Coach, you're crazy, but I'll listen to you. I trust you. And that's what really kind of set me on the trajectory that allowed me to have a lot more success on the track and really made me fall in love with the sport.
Okay. Earlier, you briefly touched on that in high school. You said you thought you might want to become a coach. When did coaching become a goal for you?
So I knew in high school that I wanted to coach to some degree. Initially, it was going to be more of just kind of a part-time thing, just kind of keeping around the sport. It wasn't until I got to college, probably freshman year, pretty early, that I decided that, the collegiate system is where I belonged and where I really wanted to put my focus.
Was there like any defining moment, maybe as an athlete, where you said, I want to be a coach and I want to help student athletes?
I don't know if there was really a particular moment. I think that desire to help athletes and teammates and things was kind of always there, and it just continued to get stronger. And that kind of became instead of being the kind of secondary goal, that became the main focus. But I don't think there was necessarily like a particular moment that it was like that aha moment that yep, this is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, and as a specifically Division III coach, we're not in it for the money. You were a part-time coach for many years. Recently just became full-time. What has kept you motivated? Throughout those years.
Obviously, you can say the performances that the athletes have. When you get records broken or athletes qualified for nationals or regionals or those kind of things. Those are always exciting moments as a coach because that's at the end of the day what we're working for. From a competition standpoint. But I think that at the end of the day, it's, the relationships that we build with our student athletes and, constantly having kids coming into the office just to, chat and, they've got some free time and they want to come in and talk to coach and, see how our days are going. We can talk about their days, all those kind of things. That's the special part of being a coach, those relationships.
Now, are you sure that they're really coming to see you or the snack bin that's in your office?
That's they'll probably grab a snack while they're there.
So you mentioned building those relationships with the student athletes. Could you maybe describe what your coaching style is?
So I tend to be a pretty laid back coach. I want my kids to have fun, and I like my kids to have fun in practice. So we're going to joke around, where it's going to be a environment that they want to come to. Because at the end of the day, if it's, all work, no fun, it's going to get kind of stale and you're going to lose some individuals or they're not going to perform as well in practice as they should because they're just dreading it. Mm-hmm. So I like to try to keep it a little light, have some fun. But at the same time, I have very high expectations for my group, and I think that over the years, and that's one of the benefits of staying at a program for so long, is you can establish what my expectations are. And we've got a very good group of kids that have a good understanding of, kind of how I coach and that I want them to have fun and I want them to joke around and all of that. But at the same time, when it comes time to get some work done, they know that they need to put their head down and get that work done.
Yeah, how do you balance that? You need to challenge them to improve, and you also want to be supportive. How do you balance that relationship?
That can be difficult. There's sometimes through my coaching career that I've absolutely been a little too easy on certain individuals, and that's definitely a balance on trying to figure out what's the right combination of kind of easy, fun, and getting your nose to the grindstone. I think at the end of the day, it really depends on the individual. Every athlete's going to respond a little bit different. So that's where, building those relationships and when the kids come in, having those conversations, just talking to them, you start to learn how they respond to certain things. So you can kind of change how you're coaching depending on the individual. Because, you're going to have some individuals that are very serious and they're here to work. They don't really want to, mess around and they want to get their stuff done and get out. And then you're going to have those other athletes that don't really respond to that, tough coaching. They need to, that coach that's going to come, put their arm around them and, tell them it's all right, work through things and, all that kind of stuff. So it's It's a tough question to answer. It's kind of on an individual basis, how those athletes are going to respond.
Yeah, I agree completely. Every athlete is different, and to motivate them, you have to find different ways for different student athletes. But what about the development of the athletes? Like, do you have a core belief in, developing a freshman to senior?
So I actually had this conversation quite a few times this weekend with a lot of our athletes. My philosophy with coaching, from one standpoint, I'm a very technical coach. So that technical aspect is always going to be there in our training. At the same time, the speed is going to be a very big part of our program as a whole. At the end of the day, if we can make you faster, regardless of what event group you're running, your times are going to be better. But one big thing that I focus on as a coach is it's all a process. I don't particularly care what our first year, second years are doing, because a lot of the times they're coming in, they've got bad habits. They aren't used to, the weight room training. They're not used to the intensity that we train at, all of those kind of things. So I look at it as I'm training them for that junior, senior year. If they have good performances that freshman, sophomore year, awesome. But those years are more developmental years for me, where I'm going to break them down and get them to do the things that I need them to do from a technical standpoint or an intensity standpoint. And then we build off of that, so that way when they're juniors, seniors, they can reach what their true potential is.
Great. From Ohio. You said you've been here. This is your 9th year.
Yep.
Why? Why Susquehanna? Why Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania?
That's actually a pretty easy question. This was the only place that brought me on for an interview. I had a lot of applications out, and the coach at the time, Marty Owens, needed a hurdle coach. And I had started coaching hurdles at Cloverleaf for the 2 years. And he said, hey, I need a hurdle coach, come down, interview. And obviously he saw something there. And I fell in love with the program. So short answer, this was the only one that called me for an interview.
Well, by process of elimination,
Yep.
I'm very glad that's how that worked out.
Me too.
You've been an incredible asset to the program.
I appreciate that.
And you've done such a great job. But to you, what makes this program special?
I mean, there's a lot of things. I can go on for hours about the different things that SU has to offer and the program has to offer. I think that some of the big things is SU has a very different feel from a lot of different campuses. I talk with a lot of parents and a lot of recruits over the years, and I've had quite a few of them tell me that, they'll go to a different university and they're going on a tour and, everybody's walking around with their face in their phones. Nobody's really greeting anybody, or, everybody's just looking the other way when somebody walks by. SU is a very different feel to that. When you walk down campus, people are going to be greeting you, and, it has more of a community feel, a family feel across campus, and that kind of extends to our program as well. That's one of our big philosophies, and one of the big things that you brought when you started here is that culture change from we're a family now, a community. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I see. Obviously there's a ton of benefits to SU, from an academic standpoint, a facility standpoint, all of those kind of things. But I think that just the feel of campus, the community, is very special here. And it was very similar to what I had when I was at BW. And it's a very similar feel to the town that I grew up in. So the moment that I stepped on campus, I just kind of felt at home.
Great. You've stepped into the role as recruiting coordinator this year.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that the Susquehanna track and field program, like the student athletes, have specific traits that define them?
I would say absolutely. I think one of the big ones is definitely the work ethic. We've got a lot of kids that are very hard workers, and we're raised with a certain expectation. When they do something, they're going to do it right, and they're going to do it with everything they have. I think that's a big thing that if you look at a lot of our top athletes over the last few years, that's been a common factor with all of them. Just that desire to be better and that willingness to put in the work that it's going to take to get to that level.
Yeah, I would agree completely. All right, so as we get close to wrapping this, Meet the Coach segment up, we want to shoot some rapid-fire questions at you.
Let's go.
All right. What's your favorite event to watch?
400 hurdles.
Why?
That was my event in college. It's a very difficult event. The 400 was my favorite event when I was in high school, and that was one of my best events before I found the 4 hurdles. But it's a very, very difficult race. And, like I said before, it takes a crazy person to go at the speeds that you need to be successful.
All right. Indoor or outdoor?
Outdoor.
Why?
Outdoor's a very short season for us. But I think that when you look at track and look at the events that people really want to watch in track, you get them outdoor, 100, 400 hurdles. You don't have to deal with, 400 going 2 laps, 110 hurdles, 100 hurdles. I think some of the more exciting events in track are in outdoor.
Okay. Favorite facility to compete in?
I mean, I feel like I have to say ours, but I think I have to go with Naz's track with the turf facility attached to it is phenomenal from a warm-up standpoint and making sure that the athletes are ready and having the space to compete.
Okay. Any pre-meet habits? And maybe we'll do this in 2 parts. Home pre-meet habits and when we travel pre-meet habits, because I know when we're home it's very different.
I mean, the home one's kind of a little more difficult because we're always setting up. So I guess the home meet habits is just, making sure the facility is prepared for competition so we can have a meet that is executed to our standards. Away competitions, I would say it would be, checking heats and seeds and all that kind of stuff, seeing where my athletes are, what heats they're going to be in, what lanes they're going to be in, so that I can try to better prepare them for the competitions that day.
All right. Coffee or energy drink?
Coffee in the morning, energy drink in the afternoon.
All right. Music or silence?
I got to have music. I can deal with silence, but then I start going on tangents in my head. The music helps keep all of that away.
All right. I'm not going to go into it. I don't want you to elaborate on that. One word that describes you.
Anal.
Anal. Okay.
Yeah, I'm very
particular.
Little OCD, little organized.
Okay.
To a fault sometimes.
I can relate. I'm very particular how I want things done as well. And one word that describes the program.
Passionate.
Okay. All right. So to wrap things up here, what's a message you might send to recruits and families, that are potentially looking at Susquehanna?
I could go on for hours. In fact, I do when I have recruits here. SU is just a very special place. You're going to get a lot of bang for your buck. The return on investment is very high, kind of regardless of what you're interested in studying or, the level you're at. You're going to get people that are going to care about you and want to see you develop to your potential on the track, in the classroom, in life in general, whatever that happens to look like.
All right. And what excites you about the future?
And the kids have been working very hard. So I'm excited to see, how the program continues to go and to, kind of where we can go in the next, 5-10 years.
Great. All right. Well, it's been awesome sitting here and getting to know you. I actually learned a few things in our time. But again, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. All of you. Thanks for joining us. This has been the Susquehanna JT Exchange podcast in our special edition of Meet the Coach. Coach Ryan Weir, thank you once again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.